So now we get to um, the meat and potatoes of it. During this time, like I said, around 95, 96 now, um, Southern rap is not really being played as much as people would like to. So um, there was, like I said, this big spring break gathering. Why not start passing out tapes and having people play it while they're in traffic, while they're driving up and down the street, um, to get that, your name out there, to get your group out there, to get your music out there. And so that's exactly what one of my favorite groups, Outkast, did. And of course, they're part of the Dungeon family, but this is the time where CeeLo was pretty much talking, and another member of the Dungeon family was there, and they basically said that they wanted Outkast to be like the forefront, so that they get on, then we gonna get on. And around that time, let's say 95, 96 is when we saw where they were passing out the cassette tapes. And I feel like I'm old enough to say, yeah, I don't know nothing about them. Kids don't know nothing about them cassette tapes. So they were passing out the cassette tapes, and people were, like, who is that? Where you get that from? So they was making, their money off of that. Like I said, there was people out there making money off of, making t-shirts and all of that stuff. Because why not, again, capitalize off of a situation where, people are going to need these things. And that's basically how, like Uncle Luke said, the door was open for more Southern rappers to come in. And as Andre 3000 said, the South has something to say, and they most definitely did, because that's how they it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the South for a while dominated the rap game, if you're gonna be honest. But in the 90s, it was kind of difficult for them to, get their foot in the door. But once they got in there, honey, there was no turning back. And they also talked about the strip clubs. And I said, this is one of those things where you really do see like nudity, I guess, the women's breasts and stuff. And they talked about, again, if you wanted to get a name for yourself, if you wanted to come up, you had to give your tape, your album, whatever, your music to the strip clubs. And if they rocking with you, people gonna be like, okay, who was that old girl was dancing to? I need that. And so, like, again, word of mouth, not necessarily social media, was how, you know, people came up. And if the girls is feeling you, if a stripper knew you and knew you was underground, let me get your music. Let me see how people was vibing to it at the club. Let me see how, how the DJ feel about it. And if they like it, they gonna rock with it. If they don't, they don't. But these are ways and spaces that us black people had to make it, had to come up, had to be innovative, because a lot of people weren't trying to hear them. You know what I'm saying? They weren't taking it seriously. But I feel like anytime there is a space for us, and we want to see each other, grow. We want to see each other um, blossom into something big. We support each other. We can go far. And we see in the documentary that that's exactly what began to happen, from just kids who couldn't afford to go home during spring break to now this huge um, event. And now through this event, other people are getting a chance to get put on. That ain't nothing but love. That ain't nothing but what black people really do. Until, the bad apples began to spoil the bunch. So in 1996, the Olympics decided that they would host in um, Atlanta. Atlanta would be the host, so you say. And so this is something huge, something major. They're finally getting international, recognition. And this is, again, the place to be. Now, we all know when we got everybody looking at us, like they said in the documentary, we got to be on our best behavior. We got to look good. We got to clean up a reputation, because we don't want to embarrass ourselves. We don't want to have the tourists and the people coming from for the Olympics to feel unsafe and all this other stuff. And I was just like, what's about to happen? what's about to happen, because I never really knew what happened to end the Freaknik. But around this time, like I said, in '96, the Olympics is coming, and so the city of Atlanta is deciding now that because it had Freaknik has gotten so huge, there's no longer just Greek life. There's no longer college students coming. There's people from all over, old, young, coming and just trying to say that they were a part of something. And at this point in time, there's hood people, like they said, hood people coming, uh, probably some white people sprinkled in there coming, just people from everywhere. Just again, bigger and bigger, hundreds of thousands of people coming. And so, what do we do when there is a whole bunch of people, black people, in one area, blocking businesses? People are upset because they're not getting, the patrons aren't coming because the traffic is everywhere. Can't nobody get to where they need to go. People can't get to work. Ambulances can't get through the streets. So people is starting to like be annoyed by it per se. And they are wanting to put it into it. But again, Atlanta is black, the black mecca, as they kept saying. So it's just like, you can't stop us. We're going to do what we're going to do. Or at least that's what they thought, because now that everybody is knowing about it, there is starting to be, like I said, bad apples who are spoiling the bunch. People are becoming more sexual. It's no longer, like I said, about just gathering and having a good time. People are being more aggressive. They're being more like lewd in the streets, and having doing all type of salacious acts on cars, in the cars, on top of cars, in the streets, grabbing, groping women, exposing themselves a lot more than they were in the beginning, just doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff. A whole bunch of crazy stuff to where people is now like feeling like the vibes is off, the energy is off. It's not fun anymore. People are just coming basically just to be, have an excuse to be a creep, having an excuse to like degrade women, having an excuse for, or just to degrade themselves, and just not, no longer having this like, let's get together and have fun. It's let's get together and just act a crazy fool. And so there was starting to be talks about how to control this, how to gain back the city of Atlanta from these no longer college students now, but from these people who are just coming down here from miles and miles away, or just who live here, who are just coming down here acting a plum fool. And so, because there was like a whole bunch of craziness going on, they felt like, a lot of people felt like the attention was just on them. And there was one guy who said, the white spring break spots are doing the exact same thing, probably worse. So why are y'all trying to control us? Y'all not going down there putting up uh, any type of like barriers or police or anything like that. But again, once money is involved, like they said, and the Olympics is coming, and businesses want to start, getting the business, making the money. Somebody, I think it was Killer Mike, who said basically it ain't personal, it's business. So Olympics is gonna bring billions and billions and billions of dollars. Of course, we're gonna just be like, okay, we're gonna move y'all to the side. It was cute while it lasted, but we got bigger fish to fry. And that is when, like I said, the beginning of the end began. The mayor decided that he wanted to make some changes. Mr. Bill Campbell, he wanted to have basically more control of the city, and so uh, there was a lot of like traffic rerouting uh, to get the Freaknik from being downtown to being more like in a centralized area. So they did a lot of like I said, those barriers. They rerouted how people who are coming from out of town had to go. They blocked off a whole bunch of exits, and that in turn made the situation worse because people was pissed off because they didn't travel far to come here. People who actually live in Atlanta couldn't get to where they wanted to go. They started to go out of town during this time because they didn't want to deal with the traffic if they lived there. Again, people who were in traffic wasn't moving nonstop. They decided again to make the party the traffic. Um, and there were things that were happening, people fighting, people more aggressive, people getting into it with the police, of course, gun police. And they were again trying to push the Freaknik way. Um, but all in all, it was causing a whole lot of problems because it was like, oh, so you really just trying to end it in your own little way. And a lot of people wasn't having it. They was like I said, we done traveled, we done spent our money, we coming. But soon they began to realize like it's not the same anymore. Not only because of like the sexual acts that was being done and like all this other stuff being done that was just so freaking crazy, y'all. But um, just people just wasn't having a good time anymore. It was becoming like a headache more so than just black people enjoying each other and having a good time. So as we are seeing the beginning of the end to a legendary time in black people culture history, Atlanta history and culture. We, like I said, we see a lot of tension between the people and the police now because of all the blocks and the traffic and the mayor, Bill Campbell was his name, trying to get the city together for the Olympics to come. And so basically he's just like, you know what, no, no more. And so in 1998, this is where, it pretty much was ended. It was becoming, like I said, a lot more aggressive, a lot more um, just out of control. And again, people were just coming to Atlanta to have an excuse to be violent, to be aggressive, to degrade women, for women to feel unprotected, for people to just have an excuse just to run wild. And I can totally see why during the documentary, when they were going around asking, different people in Atlanta if they were going to come back for the next Freaknik, they was like, no, I got work to do. No, it's not the same anymore as it was a few years ago. No, I'm not coming back because these people are out of their minds. And again, an excuse for a lot of wrong things, horrible things that some women had to endure and encounter. There were fightings. There were fighting. There was um, people are starting to get arrested. People again going with the police and being aggressive as usual with a bunch of black people. And so there was one particular person, I believe her name was Stacy Lloyd, and she talked about her experience. She wasn't even, necessarily in the midst of the Freaknik, but she happened to be like a face of a negative part of the 1998 Freaknik. And in her story, she talks about some things that happened to her that shouldn't have happened at all, and how it affected her mentally, how she couldn't do crowds anymore, how she felt unprotected as a black woman, and the people who, you know, just did her wrong were black men, and how, you know, we say all the time, or we have heard all the time, that black women are the most unprotected women in American history. And like she said, for people who look like her, for people who have family members that look like her, they basically just scarred her and just um, did things to her that she never would have imagined. And she just couldn't wrap her mind around why. And the only thing that saved her per se was somebody yelling out that the police were coming. But again, like she said, the police wasn't really worried about it. They had the people in the central location like they wanted to have their fun, do what they got to do, stay away from the areas that the mayor has blocked off. But we're not going to highlight the fact that there is some crazy stuff going on because we don't want to scare away all of those people who will be traveling to Atlanta for the 96 Olympics. Um, or, not the 96 Olympics, but they will be traveling to Atlanta during this time. And so we are not going to deal with it. And she felt like even the police didn't, help her in the situation. They just kind of gaslit the situation and kept it pushing. And so, like I said, the energy felt a lot more predatory than normal. So again, not a lot of people that was going to the Freaknik decided to go. And the mayor of the city, like I said, Bill Campbell, and another person that worked for the city by the name of George Hawthorne, who was actually in the documentary, said that they wanted to basically end it. They didn't feel like they wanted to um, deal with the consequences of any other things going wrong with the Freaknik. It was becoming way too much. And so their committee decided to put a stop to it because they didn't want Atlanta's reputation to be one of just, like I said, just mess. And so, uh, because everybody was starting to, slowly but surely back away from the Freaknik and from Atlanta, there was even a guy who was interviewed that said, we're going to Daytona. We're not. That's more of the happening place now. It's just too much. And so, like I said, '98 was basically the end of Freaknik. And then towards the end of the documentary, y'all, we get to present day where we have Uncle Luke, Jermaine Dupri, 21 Savage, and some other people talking about, the revival of Freaknik. And there was a guy by the name of Carlos Neal who basically says he bought the rights to the title Freaknik. Um, and he wanted to bring it back per se. And so in 2018, he decided that he was going to put on this big festival. It would be nothing like the Freaknik of the 90s, of the past. And he had people, that he brought along with him. They had the concerts, food, vendors, and all of those things, shopping, just a place for everybody to meet, gather, have a good time. But again, nothing like, the reputation of the past. But as I said, Jermaine Dupri, Uncle Luke, and some other people was just like, you know what? They can change the name, they can keep the name, they can buy the rights to the name. There would never be another Freaknik. A lot of people tried to emulate it. Of course, we saw in the documentary 21 Savage, he had a Freaknik birthday party. But even now, like present day, like of course, younger generations who didn't quite grow up in the 90s or were born during that time, like they want to feel that again. But like they said, it will never be another one. But they need something like that. As a couple of people in the documentary were saying, they want to feel that vibe. They want to do whatever they can to try to like I said, emulate that feeling and of what they saw or what they've heard. But it's just not the same, and it will never be the same. And at the end, we basically heard some people's thoughts about, the whole picture of Freaknik. And basically, the essence of Freaknik was just to celebrate our culture, to experience our culture for other people who were not black, that I'm sure were there, sprinkled somewhere in there, to have fun, to, celebrate education, Greek life, community with our people, to just like bask in our blackness. But they felt as though we can't do that today because of social media. Everybody always want to record something. Everybody's just more concerned about the likes and the follows, or catching people with their phone, like one of the guys said, like a aha moment or cancel culture. So everything that was done back then would not fly, would not fly today, because everybody's just too busy wanting to expose people, to cancel people, to not um, to just be just messy in a way, so that they didn't have all of that. They didn't have to worry about all that back then. So again, it would never be the same. But I believe what did the people from the 80s, the DC Metro Club created, I don't think that they even realized, and I believe some of them even said they didn't realize how big this, would be, how big it could be. They never would have imagined it, but it was very much a staple in Black history, in Black legacy. So no, like they said, no matter who bought the rights to the name, we created it, and there's nothing that they can take away from us. Nothing they can take away from the Freaknik, flaws and all. Of course, like I said, bad apples spoil the bunch, as they often do, but not all people were down there just exposing themselves and having sex and doing all type of crazy stuff. It was really just about having a good time. And so when you think of Freaknik, or when I think of Freaknik, I automatically go to like the booty shaking and people just doing off the wall crazy stuff. But this really opened my eyes to see, especially, from the 80s, where how it started, like to see what it was intended for, and then how it can go left real quick, which it did. But at the end, like how innovative and creative and like just dope Black culture is, how dope, innovative, creative Black people are, and how, again, we set the trends. So we need these spaces. We need places for us to just enjoy Black people, enjoy our heritage, enjoy us together without all the drama, without all the mess, without violence, without shootings, all of that. And I feel like we've gotten away from that because a lot of people just don't care anymore. Not all, but a lot don't. So we need spaces like this to be carefree, to be Black without apologizing for it, especially when we have a lot of things that are not catered towards us, and we get the vibe that we aren't allowed or we're not wanted there, but they tolerate us. We Freaknik was that. Freaknik was that. And we have to connect, like they said, a lot more together, because when we can support one another, like I said earlier, when we can connect together, we are amazing and we do amazing things, and we again set the trends for America. We really do, because we are dope. And I'm proud to be a Black woman, but we need something, y'all, like this for the Black youth that's not on the internet, for Black college students to feel safe, and carefree, to have a good time, to experience the Black joy, and just to continue to be creative and influential, because that's exactly what Black people are. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this documentary a lot. Like I said, I thought it was going to be one way, but it went another way. But it all tied in together. All in all, I would give it like a 8.5 out of 10. Just because I didn't really see much of CeeLo. I thought we would have, some more big, bigger Atlanta names during that time, and even possibly thought, some people like that may have just been there, not necessarily have a big name, but like just people, just out in the streets, they could have grabbed them, talked about, their experience there. And oh yeah, Lil Jon was on there too. I didn't mention him. He was on there too as well. He's big in Atlanta as well. But all in all, like I said, an 8.5 out of 10 for me. Have y'all watched it? Will you watch it? Did you like it? What did you expect from it? Did you expect this from the documentary? And let me know in the comments, y'all. I am about to go and enjoy the rest of my weekend, and I hope you guys do the same. You did not have to be here, but you are, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. And I'll see y'all later.